Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Should criminal defamation continue to be an offence in India, or should it be abolished? That's the key issue facing the Supreme Court today, and to everyone's surprise, the government has strenuously argued in favour of its retention. But is the case in favour of abolition not just stronger, but also morally more convincing? That's our debate in part 2, and it's one that ultimately affects all of us. But first, India's ex-servicemen are poised to significantly step up their protests in support of one rank, one pension. Frustrated by the government's prolonged delays and their own distrust of its intentions, they now intend relay hunger strikes in every district of the country, a boycott of the government's functions, and rival Kargil Day celebrations, while Anna Hazare has also threatened a hunger strike. But is all of this justified and understandable, or possibly one step too far? My guests are former Army Chief General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, the chairman of the ex-servicemen's movement, Lieutenant General Raj Kadian, BJP spokesperson Sampit Patra, and the well-known defence analyst and journalist Nitin Gokhale. General Kadian, given that as recently as the 9th of this month, the defence minister said there will be good news soon on OROP, are the ex-servicemen justified in substantially stepping up their agitation? After all, I fully accept that you waited a long time and frustration must have set in, and I accept that you've been misled many times by being told OROP is round the corner. But surely, should you not give the defence minister more than just 6 days?
Karan, allow me to mention that whenever we consider this over 3 decades old demand of one rank, one pension, which we pushed to the front burner from 2008 onwards, I find it very surprisingly unwise of the government to sit on it, even now keep it open-ended and uncertain. It was not a major demand for the government to meet. They should have met immediately. But they have staked their credibility on a very minor issue as far as the government level is concerned. They have avoidably alienated a very disciplined and patriotic section of the society and forced us to become protesters and agitationists. The ex-servicemen today feel totally betrayed. The government has gone back on its commitment made in the floor of the House. The party has gone back on its promise made in the manifestos, not once but twice, 2009 and 2014. You mentioned about the defence minister. I have met him a couple of times. As a person, Manohar Parrikar comes as a very, very transparent, with a very high sincerity of purpose, very deeply committed to the cause of the ex-servicemen welfare. But in the prevailing political circumstances, I'm afraid he has, as a defence minister, not been able to deliver on the promises that he has made. His statement on the 9th of July made, as you mentioned, is being seen in the same light, that he means well, but I don't think he is in a position to take it to the logical end.
General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, let me take up that point about the defence minister's assurance given just 6 days ago on the 9th of July. There's a background against which ex-servicemen view the assurances they get from Mr. Parrikar. For instance, in May, Mr. Parrikar publicly said OROP would happen in a few days. 4 days later, the finance minister contradicted him. A few weeks later, the prime minister contradicted him. And in fact, OROP still hasn't happened. So when now in July, the defence minister once again says it's just days away, people are distrustful. People don't want to believe him. Can you understand that? Or do you believe that they are being unfair in being distrusting?
No, I don't think they are being unfair in the sense that they have been strung along long enough by various personalities. I think the only way around this, what shall I call it, debacle, is for the Prime Minister himself to speak up and say, yes, you are going to get it by such and such date. You see, the problem is there are two ministers speaking in two voices, the finance minister and the defence minister. Now, I think the time has come, because this government still has goodwill. The Prime Minister must come out with a definitive, authoritative statement to say that yes, you will have OROP by XYZ date, by which date the government must finish its homework, do its homework, its calculations, and come out with it.
Nitin Gokhale, as things stand today, the United Front of Ex-Servicemen has decided to A, spread their relay hunger strike to each of the 640 districts of the country. Secondly, they plan to boycott all government organized functions. Thirdly, they are going to plan their own celebration on Kargil Vijay Divas. And finally, a Mahasangram rally is planned in Patna in August. Is all of that, in your eyes, understandable, or do you think perhaps it's a bit excessive?
It is understandable, Karan, because I am a Fauji kid and I understand that frustration from my own father, who is also in his mid-80s now. But that said, I think this entire elaborate program that they have done is slightly over the top. They could have continued to do the agitation in Jantar Mantar, which is symbolic, which is putting pressure on the government in any case, because the parliament session is coming up. By spreading it across the country and then trying to say that Mahasangram rally in Patna, which is in view of the elections coming up there, I think it's giving it a political color which we don't expect us, the Faujis, to do it. And therefore, I will differ with the leadership of the ex-servicemen movement on that count. But I completely understand their frustration, and I have been one of the strongest supporters for the OROP demand to be met by the government, and I am actually astonished and disappointed that this government has not been able to deliver on the promises that they have made number of times, and despite the fact that the Prime Minister himself said that it will be given, it is taking so much time.
In fact, to be honest, the Prime Minister once when he went to Leh said it had been given and got it wrong.
That's right. In fact, you can differ on that, but he himself said it in Man Ki Baat. And I think that we should take it at face value, but that date, like General Shankar Roy Chaudhary said, is essential. Then I think the agitation can be called off because people have been patient, and they will be patient if a date is given.
Samit Patra, I want to put to you the point that you heard from General Qadian, perhaps most forcefully of all. Ex-servicemen feel betrayed. That's an extremely emotional, but it's an extremely strong term. When they feel betrayed, they feel more than just let down, they feel they've been used and abused by a government that made them a promise in the hope of getting their votes and then did not fulfill it. How do you, as the spokesperson of the party that forms this government primarily, respond to that sense of betrayal?
No, first and foremost, I would salute the ex-servicemen on your panel today and throughout the country. They are the ones for whom we exist today. And no sense of arrogance should prevail in debating such an important issue as OROP. And let me tell you, Karan, that even if I lose a debate, or let me lose many debates, in fact, on OROP, but they should get what their right is. And I am sure what Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of country, has very comprehensively and very astutely maintained right from the beginning, when he was not even, he was not even the Prime Minister, he was campaigning for the party. Way back in 2014, he had said in Haryana that I am committed to this cause. And
2013 actually, September 2013.
Yes. September 2013, and in fact in 2015, about a fortnight or a month ago, when he was addressing the nation through his Man Ki Baat, he had rightly mentioned and reiterated his feelings that I realize it is a bit complicated matter, but it's just a matter of time before the OROP is realized as a dream. We have to understand that since 40 years this has been going on, and government after government have failed to realize the dream. But I'm sure with the words of the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, which comes from his heart, he's quite emotional about the affair. It would be delivered within the tenure of this government.
Hang on a second. It would be delivered within the tenure of this government. You've got just under 4 years left. Are you now saying that the time horizon could expand till 2019?
No. I'm not saying anything like that.
It sounded like that. Do correct yourself quickly.
No, I'm not saying anything like that. I would like to say that at the earliest possible time, because what the Prime Minister
What
said...
is the earliest possible time? These are just words that people throw around. What is the earliest possible time?
As a spokesperson, I would not be able to preempt what the government policies are, but drawing from the words of the Prime Minister himself, he has maintained that it is just a matter of time.
Well, I'm afraid he didn't say it's just a matter of time. What he said in Man Ki Baat is, in fact, the country has multiple definitions of OROP and doesn't doesn't have an agreed definition, and he asked for time, not saying how much time. So between you and the Prime Minister, you're not reassuring, you're actually probably a bit disconcerting and disturbing, particularly when you say before the end of the tenure of this government. That will shake people's confidence.
Not at all. I do not say that till the end of the tenure. All I mean to say is convey what the Prime Minister has been maintaining, that this government will surely deliver what it has promised. And we had promised one rank, one pension, and we will deliver.
All right, let's hope you're right. Let me bring in General Qadian. We've heard the government's assurances, we've heard the arguments about why ex-servicemen are skeptical many times. I'm not going to go into all of that. I want to raise with you a sense of concern that's been communicated to me by many ex-servicemen, by many serving officers and soldiers, and it was articulated a moment ago by Nitin, who himself is a soldier's son. Many people can understand the frustration and understand the agitations that you're planning, but they feel that perhaps organizing rival Kargil Vijay Divas celebrations, and secondly, perhaps boycotting all government-organized functions, is not the right step for ex-servicemen to take. Trade unionists do that sort of thing. Army officers and soldiers, Navy and Air Force officers and soldiers should not go down the same path. How do you respond to that concern?
Karan, first, one comment on what Sandeep Patra said. I fully respect his views. But when he said that this will be given within the tenure of the government, I do presume it slipped out as his individual opinion, and this is not the party line. If this is the government decision, then I think the protest will certainly escalate. Now, the question, we are a disciplined society, we are a disciplined lot of ex-servicemen. We want to keep our protests disciplined and dignified and in a passive mode. In that, our choices get limited. We are not into burning buses or stopping trains, although if we were to do that, nobody is better trained than us in the country. But that is not what we are looking for. In that passive mode, boycotting government functions, wearing black bands as I am wearing now on all of related functions, and after all, Kargil Divas is to celebrate the martyrdom of our colleagues. So we would like to remember them in solemnity and not making it a pomp and show affair. That is what we are saying. We will celebrate it in a different manner. We will also advise our comrades who get invited to the Republic Day parade to try and politely decline that invitation and keep away, just to show our anger in a very passive and a very disciplined manner. That is what I would like to submit.
General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, another aspect of the proposed stepped-up protest that is beginning to concern people is in fact the role Anna Hazare has announced for himself yesterday. He plans to hold an ex-servicemen's rally on Kargil Vijay Divas at Jantar Mantar on the 26th, and then he's threatened to hold an indefinite hunger strike at Ram Leela grounds in Delhi again from October the 2nd onwards. As a former army chief, do you believe that Anna Hazare, who himself is an ex-serviceman, is perfectly justified to do this? Or do you suspect that perhaps he's politicizing the matter in a somewhat unfortunate, undesirable way, and maybe even doing it to gain himself? What's your feeling about Anna Hazare's proposed involvement?
Karan, before talking about Anna Hazare, I would like to make a short comment to express my utter indignation, my shame, that people should be talking about organizing rival Kargil Day celebrations. For God's sake, leave Kargil alone. It was a famous victory. Leave it at that. Let it be a national day of rejoicing, and do not politicize it like apparently it is being done. Okay, having said that, now Anna Hazare, Anna Hazare is a person who has shown that he is very easily influenced by many people. And I think by now he is deeply politicized. He is deeply politicized himself. To which point of view he subscribes is not known. But whatever he does, he may be starting off in good faith, but we do not know the forces and the powers that are acting on him to act in a particular direction.
Nitin, what about something that you touched on a moment ago, the decision to hold a rally a Mahasangram rally in Patna in August? That will be just 2 months before the Bihar elections. Undoubtedly, it will be political. Undoubtedly, it's bound to be anti-BJP. Would that threaten the cherished political neutrality that ex-servicemen have always sought, always championed, and always wanted to protect? Or am I overstating it?
No, you're not. I think that is the danger inherent in that kind of organizing that Mahasangram rally that they're talking about. Because obviously somebody has told them that this is a blackmailing tactic, you can put pressure on the government and let's do it. But I think it's going to be a kind of a, it's going to backfire on them really. Because the respect that the soldier has today in the society is because he is apolitical, he is disciplined, he is punctual, and he is not given to being manipulated by the political parties. Now this one, it seems that it is now targeted against the BJP and for the anti-BJP forces in Patna. If you're doing it, why not do it in Delhi? Why do it in Patna? That will be my question as a journalist. But more than that, I am pained by the fact that the government has not been able to give a definite deadline and say by 15th August or 15th October or 15th December, we'll be able to give you OROP. Because I suspect there is some difference of opinion within the government on what should be the amount that should be given to the veterans and the soldiers.
I want to come to you, General Kajan, before I go to Sambit Patra, because you've heard General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, a former army chief, express his anguish at the very idea of a rival Kargil Divas celebration. His words were, for God's sake, keep off Kargil. You've heard Nitin say that the Mahasangram rally in Patna 2 months before the Bihar elections will endanger the image of political neutrality that ex-servicemen not only cherish but wish to protect. As the chairman of the ex-servicemen's movement, do you want to rethink those two, rival Kargil Divas celebrations and a Mahasangram rally in Patna in August?
Karan, I have very high regards for the views expressed by General Shankar Roy Chaudhary. I did not use the word rival. I used the word different. After all, Kargil Divas, although it's a national victory, it is to remember those who laid down their lives in the defense of this very country. The government that is running the same country is not listening to our demand. Therefore, we would like to remember them in our own solemn way. It is not a rival. The National Day is there, though nobody denies it.
Can I interrupt? Can I interrupt? You know, when you say you'd like to remember them in your own solemn way, are you not forgetting that those are martyrs for the country and we all want to remember them? We all believe we have a right of possession, if I can use that word, over them. They were Indian national heroes, not just army heroes. Therefore, when you try and remember them in your own separate, different way, you're separating yourselves from the rest of us. You're creating a bridge or a gap between yourselves and us. Do you really want to do that?
Karan, there is a dichotomy in what the government that is running the country celebrates the day for. What is the good of celebrating these victory days if the widows of those very martyrs are living in penury? They are not getting their legitimate dues, their right. OROP is just one issue which has aroused great solidarity among the ex-servicemen. As time passes, other questions will begin to arise if this issue is not resolved. We will ask a very legitimate question: with what logic in 1973, soon after we had won a resounding victory for the country, did the military pension get reduced from 70 to 50%?
That's not a question you're raising today, but it's a question that you may raise, and you're almost suggesting it. I hate to use that word as a, maybe threat is the wrong word, but a lever that you could use. But Sambit, there is a key point, a very emotional point, and in fact a moral point that underlay the wider argument presented by General Kajan. And the point is this: we're talking about people who haven't just served the country, they were even willing to lay down their lives for the country. In addition, many of them are old. Time is not on their side. This delay could actually be costing people OROP because they may not live to see the day it's granted. Is it right that over a miserable sum of 2,900 crore, that I believe is the figure, your government should be quibbling for so long? Set a date, live by your promise, and prove that you meant it when you said you would deliver it.
No, absolutely. I mean, there is no question that it is their right, and it is high time that they should have already achieved their right.
But then why haven't they?
Number one, it is 40 years versus 1 year of this government. I mean, you have realized by now, Karan, that lots of homework
Sambit, by that argument, you're claiming that you've got 39 more years to keep them waiting before you catch up with what Congress did.
Karan,
Come on, that's hardly an argument.
Karan, please give me some time to complete my argument, and thereafter you can ask counter questions. Number one, I mean, you would agree to the fact, and even General Qadian would also agree to the fact, that lots of homeworks which should have been done by the previous government was left hanging and in fact was not completed. And that's the reason as to why there was lots of discussion in the media channels as to what is the exact amount that would be required for the OROP. From 8,000 crore to 14,000 crore, that was the extent which was being mentioned, though I am not privy to the details. But that is how the discussions were on, because the homeworks which should have been done were not completed. The Congress government at the fag end, remember 2002 Sonia Gandhi promised one rank one pension. 2014 they came out with 500 crores.
For two reasons. One, because your defense minister, our defense minister, said to this very program in May that his commitment began the day Arun Jaitley made it. He doesn't accept any commitment made by the previous government. So now, don't now today say the previous government didn't do homework, because that's not part of the argument presented by Mr. Parikar. Secondly, Nitin with me here in studio has actually done his homework on how much it costs. I want to give you the last word on that critical figure. Explain briefly why this figure of an additional 2,900 is something this government shouldn't worry about.
Well, just to correct you, Karan, I think the figure that the Defence Ministry has arrived at after a detailed homework is about 8,298.96 crores, to be very precise.
Quite right. When I said 2,900, I meant the difference between what the Finance Minister wants to pay and what the Defence Minister accepts.
Yeah, I accept that. But that said, it has gone to the Finance Ministry. And from the Finance Ministry, there were queries again back to the Defence Ministry saying that we don't accept your definition of OROP, is what I understand. And now, therefore, the ball is shuttling between the two ministries. I think it's high time that the Prime Minister intervenes and gets the decision finally made, because otherwise it's going to be just go up and down between the two ministries.
Absolutely, and I will simply add for the benefit of the audience that the difference between the figure that the Defence Ministry accepted, which as Nitin said is 8,200 and roughly 90 crore, and what the Finance Ministry would prefer, which is some 5,400, is roughly 3,000 crore. And that is not a figure that would beggar the Indian nation. And let me assure you, it's an amount that the Indian people would readily, happily, and very quickly give to their beloved ex-servicemen, because they deserve it. If only Mr. Modi would realize that the sentiments of the Indian people are entirely in giving this money, and give it quickly. Let's hope Mr. Modi is listening, let's hope the government is listening, and let's hope they hear that to be betrayed is not a nice way of being regarded by ex-servicemen. My thanks to all my guests for joining me.